Good morning from Bear Country, California. I'm Dr. Caroline Heldman, and here are your headlines for the last week of June 2021. First up, S1, the voting bill, was defeated in the Senate. Democrats knew it would fail, but now they can say that every single Democrat voted in favor of it and every single Republican voted against it. If you're wondering why the Democrats would put up a bill that is going to fail, it is all about optics. It's a strategy for the 2022 election. So what did this bill do? Well, we know that it was the Democrats' top legislative priority because it has number one, HR 1 in the House and S1 in the Senate. And that is because there are efforts underway to suppress the vote in time for the 2022 election on the part of Republicans. So quick anatomy of how this all happened. Donald Trump, sore loser, promotes the big lie that he won the election when indeed he did not win the election. And he promotes his lie by saying there was fraud in the election. There was not. The Republicans then used the big lie in 48 states to propose legislation and in 13 states already to pass legislation that suppresses the vote. So S1 would have put in place mandated early voting, absentee voting, voter ID laws, which Republicans came up with. They like that idea, but not when it shows up and they're trying to suppress the vote. Also, it would have applied independent redistricting commissions in every state, which is something that Republicans have long wanted, but now don't, because again, they're trying to suppress a vote in time for the 2022 election, and having national legislation that actually protects voting rights is very inconvenient in a democracy when you're trying to run something that's not a democracy. The second big headline: just recently, this morning, a bipartisan group of senators and White House negotiators agreed on a framework for the infrastructure agreement. So what is going on behind closed doors? Who is getting what? We know that it is going to increase the federal budget about $600 billion. Million. We're talking about the federal government here. And that will be used to invest in roads and broadband electric, utilities and other federal infrastructure projects like dilapidated bridges. Always a good idea to, not have your bridges falling apart while cars are driving over them. It leaves behind Biden's childcare investment, leaves behind his investments in the environment. Also, it won't raise taxes on the middle class as Biden has pledged, but it also won't raise business taxes, which is what Republicans say they need. So everybody's getting a little piece of something. Let's see if it can actually pass the Senate in this time of hyper partisanship. Third big headline: the Biden administration is going to miss the goal of having 70% of all Americans at least partially vaccinated by July 4th. And they have shifted the goalpost like all good politicians do. They're now saying not all Americans, but Americans ages 27 and over will have at least one shot in the arm by July 4th. If you haven't been on Twitter, it's worth it. Dr. Fauci is getting the meme treatment because he said, look, if you have the vaccination, you can basically do anything on the 4th of July. So people are interpreting that quite broadly. All of this vaccination slowdown, going from 2 million vaccinations a day in May down to 1 million vaccinations a day in June, is happening while the Delta variant is ravaging across the United States. So it was about 3% of cases just a few weeks ago. It's up to 20%. It will be the most dominant case by the end of summer. And that means that people who are not vaccinated are going to be in worse shape now because of that more dominant virulent strain. So who's not getting vaccinated? Young people who think that they're invincible, and Trump supporters. I don't know what to say about that. Natural selection, what the heck? Put a shot in your arm, save your life. Okay, fourth headline: the Supreme Court has issued a ruling in the cheerleader case. This is the case of Brandy Levy, who sent an F-word laced message through Snapchat about her school and her sport, specifically F this, F that, F this, F that. And she sent it via Snapchat, which is supposed to be, disappear after you send it. She sent it to about 230 folks. And one of those people was a friend a person, maybe an ex-friend, who snapped a photo and sent it to her mom, who was a coach. And the school then suspended Brandy from participating in the cheerleading squad the following year. So the Supreme Court ruled that the school does not have constitutional authority to punish a student for speech off campus. This is a pretty big statement here because social media has come about since the last case where student rights were supported, and that was during the Vietnam War in the 1969 Tinker case, where they ruled that students could wear armbands as long as they didn't engage in disruptive behavior on campus, that speech was protected. The court is now saying that if you are a student and you're off campus and you are tweeting or doing, engaging in social media and you say something disparaging about your school, as long as it is not actually disruptive on campus, that the school doesn't have a right to limit that speech, and that indeed First Amendment protections extend to students off of school and campus time. Puts schools in a tight position, right? So what happens if one student is cyberbullying another student off campus and not during school hours? These questions will all be worked out in the courts. I'm expecting many cases to clarify this, working their way up the judicial system. The next headline, a new study follows a study that found this about 6 months ago as well, that life expectancy in the US decreased nearly 2 years from 2018 to 2020, largely due to the COVID pandemic. Life expectancy in the US was about 79 years, and it is now declined to 77 years. But of course, it's not affecting everyone equally. The drop in life expectancy was twice for Black Americans than what it was for what it has been in the past 2 years for white Americans. African Americans saw their life expectancy decrease by 3.3 years, and Latinx Americans saw their life expectancy decrease by 3.9 years. These are massive numbers that reflect the systemic inequalities that predate the pandemic. This is why we need critical race theory, because we need to be able to understand how racism plays out in systemic ways. For example, educational, medical, and other institutions, economic, that feed into the fact that when you have a significant drop in life expectancy, that BIPOC Americans are being disproportionately affected. That's why we have critical race theory, so we can understand the numbers that are right in front of us, so we can understand what is happening. And it's really unfortunate that history is so inconvenient for some folks, but that's their issue. We need all the knowledge we can get to understand the complexity of the worlds we are navigating. And last but not least, Britney Spears has spoken out about her finances and control of her life since 2008 in a conservatorship. Her life has been controlled by her father, and the Free Britney campaign has been speculating about this for quite some time, for the last few years, but Britney finally spoke. She told a Los Angeles judge on Wednesday that she had been drugged against her will. She'd been required to be on prescription drugs against her will. She's not allowed to remove her IUDs. She wants to have another child. She has been told who she can date and who she can't date. Quote, "I've been in denial, I've been in shock, I am traumatized." This was in a 23-minute address by telephone. Britney is 39 years old, and her father is controlling her reproductive capabilities. Her father is controlling who she dates. Her father also is, according to Britney Spears, requiring her to work certain jobs in order to make money. So he's controlling her work life, her time. This raises really significant issues about mental health issues and the rights and freedoms that folks who are suffering from mental illness episodes, the rights and freedoms that they have to control their own lives. It also smacks of sexism, the ways in which her life is being controlled. So this is an important case because it's happening so publicly to a woman who should have an incredible amount of power over her life, and yet she doesn't. We could do a primer on patriarchy, but we'll just end it there. As you go out into the world, now that the world is pretty much open, or hopefully is open where you are, please be gentle with yourself, be kind to others, and rock on.